Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Five Star Zone. Rico, Beer, Harold Shelton from the Big Ten Network, the BTN. Join us as Harold. We're getting ready to set up the final week and weekend of Big Ten hoops action. Looks like we may be close to claiming a Big Ten champion. We won't know that until probably maybe as early as Thursday night. You may have a flat-out outright Big Ten champion, depending on how things go. When Michigan State takes on Iowa, but Michigan at number 2, they're going to be playing Maryland at home. I mean, honestly, the Big Ten schedule makers couldn't have known that it was going to be this good when they originally signed up for this. But, man, this final weekend, so far, it's going to be as advertised.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that you get so many of the good teams all playing each other within this final week or two, you had Michigan State, Maryland, you had Michigan State, Wisconsin. Now you're going to get Michigan, Maryland. You're going to get Michigan, Michigan State. So a lot of these, top 4, top 5 teams all playing each other. And even before the season, you thought Purdue, Illinois would wind up meaning even more. And they play each other this weekend too. So, yeah, the schedule makers certainly did a good job of putting all of the best teams together to fight it out.
So now here we are. Let's recap some of the games. Since we last talked, we had not one, but 2 buzzer beater victories in the state of Michigan. Trey Holloman, I mean, Maryland, the Maryland-Michigan State game kind of went back to it was a rock fight, as you like to call it. It was ugly. In the final minute, looked like Michigan State had it locked up. Then all of a sudden, Maryland scored some points, which is unlike what Michigan State has done in these previous games. And Maryland actually scored, ties the game up. MSU gets the ball, dumps it down low to Kohler. Kohler misses a layup. Maryland with no timeouts pushed the ball up the court. And I forgot which guard it was, but he was 0 for everything that day. And he jacks up a premature 3-pointer with too much time on the clock. State gets the rebound. Trey Holloman hoisted up about 60 feet away, straight swoosh, bang. It's like, all right, you know what? This March is almost here at that time. They walk away with a victory in a game that, look, Maryland was hyping that game up. And even the coach came out and said, Willard was like, maybe my players got too involved in this game. The crowd was out there for hours. He was like, he had to calm his players down. The state players had to calm down. They had the shirt saying the Crab 5. It was a lot of hype for that game. Ended up being, I guess, a good win for Michigan State. Wasn't a great game shooting-wise because for Maryland, between Queen and Reese, like nobody, only really one Maryland player had a good game in that game. And for State, it just ended up being Jace Richardson again.
Yeah, so I thought Michigan State looked a little too hyped up, and so did Maryland, obviously. I was wondering how those bigs were going to go up against Reese and Queen, because I think you could argue that they might be the best big tandem in the conference, even better than the Michigan group. And so I was curious to see how that went, and they passed that with flying colors. I mean, Reese and Queen went a combined 4 of 18 in that game. They completely dominated the glass. Maryland didn't have a second chance point the whole game. And, even though they struggled to score at times in the post, their guards outplayed the Maryland guards for the most part. Like you said, Rodney Rice was the only Maryland player who had anything going. Jacoby Gillespie was the one who took the shot with about 5 seconds left on the clock. And outside of 2 field goals, I mean, he was 0 from 3. All his points late came from the line. You were kind of wondering, like, why didn't he drive to try to get to the line? Because they were getting the whistle at the end of the game, which made that close to begin with. But, credit to Kohler, even though he missed that layup, he got the rebound, immediately got it to Holloman to give him a chance. And, that 3-pointer might have wind up giving Michigan State the title. We'll see what happens this week, but it certainly put them in prime position to do so.
Right, and then the next day, Michigan, not to be outdone on Peacock, they're playing Rutgers, and Rutgers had a gigantic lead. They had a double-digit lead in the second half, and it looked like, man, maybe they had Michigan all figured out, but Michigan is the master of the 4 points or less games. They shrunk the lead down, and now they're sitting there. Rutgers, I think Michigan fouled, oh, my God, kid from Cass Tech from here, for Rutgers, transferred in.
Tyson Acuff.
Acuff fouls Acuff shooting a three. Why are you guarding him out that far? I don't know that late in the game, but he makes two of the three, which is important. Rutgers is up 2. Michigan gets the ball, calls timeout, draws up a play, and I do believe the play was for Wolf. I give Rutgers credit because they said anybody else is going to beat us but Wolf, except for somebody else did beat them, and it wasn't Wolf. Dylan Harper gets caught ball watching instead of guarding his man Barnett. Barnett just steps in, nails the three, walk off three. I mean, I would still go back. There's got to be some heat for Pikel. You got 2 of the top 3 draft picks on your team, and you may not go to the Big Ten tournament. Like, I don't know where the disconnect is, but if I'm a Rutgers fan, before we get to the Michigan, if I'm a Rutgers fan, I cannot be happy knowing on draft night the number 2 and 3 overall pick played for you and you couldn't get out your own way.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not a good look. I will say Rutgers didn't have any kind of success for the better part of 25 years until he got there, until he got him to a couple of tournaments back to back. But it seemed like everything that Rutgers did to get to those tournaments, they didn't do this year. Like, you kind of knew they were you had to get it out the mud against them. Everything was going to be tough. It was going to be physical. It was going to be a slog. They had no problem winning games in the 60s. And it seems like this year was mostly, hey, we got 2 talented guys. We want to open this thing up, showcase their talents. And they kind of got away from their core principles of defense and rebounding and playing tough. They don't really do that. And I think Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey are super talented guys. But you saw when the game got close late, it was just guys taking turns shooting jump shots. Like, it didn't really seem like they were running much of anything. And that isn't what got Rutgers successful to begin with. So, maybe it's since it's his first time getting some guys like that, like, now do I have to go back to the drawing board and figure out, like, all right, I got to get players. I know that, but it can't go the way it did this time. So how do I keep my core principles while also showcasing these lottery talents?
I mean, it's just got to be frustrating because on draft night, it reminded me of when Michigan had 2 lottery picks in Hunter Dickinson. They lose in the first round of NIT. And Juwan, it's like, dude, you had it all right there. Mm-hmm. And you couldn't manage to win. So I guess sometimes it's not about just acquiring the talent. You're able to coach the talent. But Michigan gets the win. And at that point, they keep pace with the Spartans in the battle for first place. Another big win for Dusty May, another close win because they're just, like I said, they're the masters of those wins.
That's what they do.
Right. They just find ways to get it done. And then we come up to this weekend and you're looking at the games and you're just like, okay, oh, wait. And then looks like before we get to them, Purdue finally bounced back. They have a players-only meeting, and then they host UCLA in a game that UCLA didn't look scared going into Mackey at all. They even had a little bit of a lead for a little bit of time. Eventually, Purdue prevails. Purdue, are they fixed? Are they ready for the tournament? Or is this simply get me out of the Big Ten and we'll show you what we can do? Right now, everybody knows our moves, but the rest of the country doesn't.
Yeah, I think it's that. I think it's they need to get out of the Big Ten and play somebody different. I think the coaches in this league are too good. They scout too well. They kind of know every single thing you're going to do. And after a while, I mean, it's just such a bruising league that you could tell Braden Smith was wearing down at times. And because Matt Painter didn't really have a choice. He doesn't really have a backup that he trusts to play with and give Smith some rest. Like, there were times he's playing 40 minutes consecutive games. Trey Kaufman-Wren, I still think that duo, that combo is the best in the Big Ten in terms of scoring. And coaches have gotten they kind of figured out ways to neutralize Smith some. Like TKR still gets his, but it's like, okay, we've seen Braden Smith have 4 turnover game, 5 turnover game, 6 turnover game, wear him down. You get outside the league and people don't know necessarily how to guard that pick and roll. They don't know if we're going to play drop coverage against him, or if we try to blitz it, what do we do? Like, Smith has been so good for most of the year that even when he had that like 4-game stretch where they were losing, it was still like he's still prior to year. And then the game against UCLA, I think, solidifies it again. So I just think they need to get out of conference play, do whatever you do in the Big Ten tournament, and then get ready for, that second weekend of March. We'll see what happens.
And then there's Indiana, the other school in state. I asked before, can Indiana just reconsider and maybe take Woodson out to dinner, let bygones be bygones, reconnect, reunited? I mean, because all of a sudden, after he announces he's not coming back, this team looks like the Indiana that everybody thought. Because remember, people forget, preseason, Indiana was picked at the top of the Big Ten. And then they got a lot of injuries. If I'm Indiana, do you really want to go? Because they beat Washington 78-62 on the road. Do you really want to start all over again? Or is this something that they could possibly just work out? Because Harold, I think it'd be a gigantic mistake to part ways and start all over again, because I got a feeling that the coaching search will not go the way that they hope. And whoever it is just going to be an outsider, because he'll have no ties to Indiana and will not know the hornet's nest that he's walking into. Very similar to me of what Kalen DeBoer is getting at Alabama. You're a great coach, but you're not Bama. So when you do something wrong, you still kind of looked at as that outsider, that, the stepfather, like, yeah, this is still a family meeting and you just married mom, but you're not really a part of the family yet. You're just the guy that happens to be sleeping with my mama. That's what will happen to me. Any coach that comes to Indiana. Well, Woodson still has, he's still family, maybe dysfunctional, but it's the devil, I guess.
Yeah, we were talking about this the other day. I think it's too far. I really do. And then I feel like when egos get involved, it's hard to walk stuff back. And, if I'm Woodson, and it's kind of like, I took you to a couple of tournaments when you guys hadn't been in a long time. I played here. I'm royalty here, and this is how you do me on the way out. I know I could have a hard time trying to get over that. And then especially if we come back the next season and we start out struggling again, and you start hearing the Fire Woodson chants again, and we got to go through all of that. And then if you're the AD, it's kind of like, well, I've already made up my mind. We're already doing our search. And I kind of remember how it was last year with Dan Monson, who was out at Long Beach State. They said they were going to fire him. They wind up winning the conference tournament in the Big West. They get into the NCAA tournament, and people were asking the same thing, like, well, would you try to reconsider? Like, he got you to the tournament, and they still went as scheduled. So, I think once it's already out there in the public, I feel like it's really hard to walk back. But you're right. Like, Indiana, to start the year, they were picked second in the Big Ten behind Purdue. A lot of people thought they had the most talent on paper in the conference. It wasn't for lack of effort. It wasn't for lack of trying to get guys, because they clearly hit the portal hard. The fits weren't there. And to his credit, I think he's gone away from the politics of, I got to play this guy, I got to play this guy. He's just playing the guys who will help him win. And they don't have to necessarily be the biggest names, but he's putting out the guys that I know are going to play defense. I know are going to rebound. I know it's going to make the smart play, shorten the rotation. And now they're on the right side of the bubble with a week to go.
All right, so now we move into Sunday's games. And Sunday was kind of a keep pace, or it could have been a separation Sunday. Ended up becoming a separation Sunday. Michigan State playing their 4th ranked team in a row, 5th top team in the Big Ten. So I am going to include the away game at Illinois at the Spaceship Assembly Hall, the other Assembly Hall. They win that one, and now they get Wisconsin coming in there. Wisconsin's ranked at the time number 11. MSU, goes down early. Wisconsin takes a big lead. They get a double-digit lead early, and all of a sudden, it wasn't the Trey Holloman show. It was the Jaden Akins everybody's been waiting for. All of a sudden, Jaden Akins is hitting three, misses the three, gets his own rebound, hits the two. MSU finds a way to just come back, and they suffocate Wisconsin. Wisconsin shoots 5 for 32 from the three, un-Wisconsin-like. And I think, Cohen Carr with the reverse dunk, but I think he sealed the game with the runner where they just caught him in stride, 2 steps. Because I was like, how did he make that much distance in 2 steps? Looked like he had time to go. He jams it home. MSU gets the victory, sets them up nicely because then Michigan has to hold court. Now, I'll get to that in a second. But for Michigan State, once again, shutting the water off. I mean, it's like the teams are only going to be allowed to play 36 minutes against them. You can have the lead in the first half. They don't really care about that. It's the second half. And, oh, by the way, in the final 4 minutes, Wisconsin scores 2 points. That's it. Like I said, they were 5 for 32 from the three. The defense, Izzo talked to him after the game, and he was just like, Fears was in the huddle, and he said something to the Michigan game, and he was like, look, if we got the lead and we keep them from scoring, we're going to win the game. And he was like, yeah, that's actually simple math, but that works. And that's what they've been doing. Lockdown defense in the final 4 minutes. We are just not going to let you score. They're not bleeding the clock. This ain't North Carolina four corner drill. But man, they're just frustrating teams, and I think they're wearing them down with the way the state can rotate. Against Wisconsin, you saw a lot of shots being short-armed and hitting the front of the rim because they just didn't have any lift on the ball.
Yeah, and like you said, I saw a meme floating around the other day where it says you get Michigan State in the last 4 minutes, they turn into 04 Pistons. Like they just completely shut your water off. And outside of the Purdue game, Purdue actually made some field goals in the final 4 minutes. But if you look at the Wisconsin, Michigan, Maryland, and Illinois game.
And for the Purdue game, I'm just going to say the Fletcher Lawyer 3 at the buzzer, I'm not counting that because it was like everybody was celebrating. But go ahead.
Right. Yeah, I know Kaufman Wren got a few layups in there. So I think they were 5 for 8 in those last 4 minutes. But those other 4 games, those teams combined for 1 for 19 from the floor in the final 4 minutes. Like they've outscored teams 44-20, and they are plus 58 in the second half of these last 5 games. Like they just completely have no issue. Like, all right, we'll fill you out in the first half. It's kind of like a boxer. Like, okay, let's see what your best punches are. We'll see how long you can last. And then when we get in the championship rounds, I'm still fresh. You've thrown all your biggest punches, and now I can go ahead and win the fight and knock you out, or I'm at least going to win on decision because I'm going to win on the cards, the last 4, 5, 6 rounds. And that's just what they've done. Like they've weathered every team's best punch during this stretch, and they've gone ahead and now they've got a 1-game lead. And I think Indiana was interesting now looking back at it because they played zone. They were able to rest on defense. These other teams are playing man. They're trying to chase these guys around and tiring themselves out. Maybe Indiana was onto something with that zone.
Yeah, you're not going to wear us down. And they actually made Michigan State make some bad shots. But Spartans hold serve, and then right after it's Michigan at Illinois. And a game where Illinois had a lead in the first half, and then Michigan closes it. Wolf gets a reverse layup. Michigan's down by 1, and then they come out in the second half. Vlad Golden, turns around, hits a little baby hook, and it looks like, okay, well, Michigan's going to keep pace with Michigan State, setting up the big matchup Sunday. Funny thing happened. Michigan forgot how to rebound. Illinois, I think, 19 offensive rebounds? That's unheard of. They're missing threes, but that's okay because I'll just get the rebound and lay the ball back up. And oh, by the way, then they start hitting their threes. They're banking in threes. I didn't see this coming. I guess I should have because you're the stats guy. Illinois had beat Michigan 8 straight times?
Yeah.
Make it 9. Yeah. And it was about double digits. I guess the closest Michigan came to winning was when Ayo Dosunmu beat them at the buzzer at Chrysler a few years ago. What I saw. Well, I like to call Illinois my Forrest Gump box of chocolate team. You don't know what you're going to get with them until you take a bite. You don't know if it's good Illinois, bad Illinois. Michigan, unfortunately, ran into good Illinois. And Yakachonis, did I get that right?
Yep, got it right.
All right. He had an okay game.
Right.
He didn't have a great game. He had an okay game. But Michigan, Harold looked worn down. The body language didn't look like they didn't seem like they were winners. They didn't seem like they were guys competing for the Big Ten. They looked like guys who just saying, how far is the finish line? Because I need to take a seat for a second. Take away Vlad Golden, and they end up losing by about 40 points. He was the only person and maybe it's because his parents was there. It was senior day. Bad performance when you look at this.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I know I've thought that if every team played their best in the Big Ten, I think Illinois had the highest ceiling of anybody. When you look at the size they have, when you look at the athletes, Yakachonis is supposed to be a lottery guy. Will Riley is, I've seen him on draft boards to be in the first round. They got Boswell from Arizona. So they got talent. But too many times we've seen that floor. We've seen them lose by 20 to Wisconsin. We've seen them blow a 16-point lead to Michigan State. We've seen them, lose the USC at home by 10. Like, too many times we've seen bad Illinois. But good Illinois, when they're making threes, I don't know if anybody can beat them in the Big Ten. And
I don't think anybody had Trey White beating Michigan.
No. He didn't even play in the Michigan State game. I think he had kind of fallen out of the rotation for a bit. But they go ahead and they hit 11 threes in the second half. They scored 62 points in the second half. So if you look, arguably the two best road performances of the year when you consider competition, Illinois might have both of them. Like, they won by 35 at Oregon where they scored 107 points. Yeah. And then you win by 20 at Michigan, scoring 93 with 62 of those coming in the second half. So, yeah, if you get good Illinois, you're in a lot of trouble. And we saw that on Sunday.
Yeah, Michigan keeps the turnovers down to 11, but I think it was the offensive rebounds that really hurt them, leaving a ton of points on the free throw line, and going 4 for 18 with 3-pointers. Just not a recipe. I guess if you're Michigan, is there somebody that can jumpstart this team and recharge it, or is it kind of like Purdue? You just need to get out the Big Ten and know that it's going to be hard for some people to double team your big man, because the Maryland game, Maryland actually has two people who can work well against the Michigan big man.
Yeah, I think it is similar to Purdue, but I don't think it's as easy of a fix. Michigan's problems have been there all year long in terms of the turnovers. They haven't been a great rebounding team despite having 2 7-footers. And Danny Wolf looks a little worn down. We saw it in the Michigan State game some, but if you look this last 4 games, he's under 10 points a game. He's 3 or 14 from threes, not even shooting 40% from the floor. He's got 12 turnovers, only 15 assists. So if that's the guy who's handling the ball a ton, and he's still averaging 3 turnovers a game, and he's not efficient from the floor, it kind of drags everything else down. Like, Michigan's at their best when Wolf and Golden are both playing well. And over these last few games, it's really just been Golden that's playing well. And with them not having a true point guard, with Trey Donaldson kind of being inconsistent as he's been, you really need Danny Wolf to play well. This isn't a Michigan State thing where, well, if Wolf's off, then I know I can rely on somebody else. Like, their best guys have to play well all the time for them to win.
So now what are we expecting? They're taking on this is the final game at Chrysler Center this year. Maryland coming into town. Maryland looking like a team that wants to make a last-second surge and get one of the double buys. What should we expect in this game with Michigan and Maryland? Because, Michigan has an advantage with Wolf and Golden, but Maryland comes in with Queen and Reese. And if I look at it, I give Maryland's backcourt the advantage and the edge. They don't really go a ton to the bench, but Michigan's bench is not that great either. They just bringing Will Cheddar off the bench is really their big bench guy, their sixth man. What are we looking at in this game?
Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. Even if you wind up saying that Michigan-Maryland front court is a wash, I think the Maryland backcourt has a huge advantage in this game. I think Gillespie and Rice and Selton McGill could certainly find ways to make open shots. They struggled against Michigan State, but I think that was because Michigan State's perimeter defense was really good, and Michigan's hasn't been that. So unless Michigan's getting contributions from Kaysen or Reuben Jones or somebody else other than Donaldson, I think that Michigan's bigs are going to have to carry them. And we just talked about how Danny Wolf looks worn down. He's going to face Julian Reese, who's another physical defender. And, if he has another game where he's got like 10 points and he's shooting 3 of 9 from the field or 4 of 10 from the field, I think Michigan's going to really struggle. But if Michigan finds a way, then you can set yourself up for end of the season, play against your rival with a chance for, at least a share, if not outright, depending on what Michigan State does at Iowa. So it's still all in front of you, despite the fact that they've been, walking this fine line and, the fact that they've lost by 13 and 20 and 27 in these losses, they're still right there if they find a way to win on Wednesday.
So Michigan State headed to Carver Hawkeye the very next day. What do you expect from a team in Iowa not playing that well? But, I've been hearing rumors like this may be not Ferris.
Fran McCaffrey.
Fran McCaffrey. I got the wrong Iowa coach. Fran McCaffrey's last game. What's going on at Iowa?
It just seems like it's kind of gotten stale a little bit there. They're usually high tempo, shoot a lot of threes, score a lot of points, don't really guard anybody.
Did he run out of kids to put on the team?
It seems like it. And then you've had, I think one of them transferred to Butler. The other one graduated. I think his youngest committed to Butler. So it just seems like, like you said, there's a lot of rumors going around. Like, is this Fran's last year? No one said anything for sure, but that's been floating around. And, I think senior day, they could be charged up. Michigan State has had issues there. They've lost 5 of the last 6 against Iowa. Don't want to bring up the PTSD situation, but, a couple years ago.
Funny story about that, and then I'm going to let you finish. So I just moved into this place, and I remember telling the Best Buy people, don't come during this time to install the TV and stuff. Like, just, don't. Because they was going to mount it on the wall. I'm like, come at this time. They come. I guess the game went longer, so they showed up right there on the time. Michigan State was winning. So by the time they turn it off and do all of this stuff, it turns it back on. And I'm like, oh, my goodness. I'm looking at them like, I blame you. I blame you because I told you don't show up until after this game. And they go to overtime. And, that one still stings because I'm trying to think, did they have a 11-point lead with a minute to go? Or something ridiculous like that where how'd you lose that thing? But go ahead.
And it was crazy because Michigan State didn't play bad in that minute. Like, I think they missed one free throw. They didn't turn it over. Iowa just made 3 after 3 after 3. And a lot of those guys are still there. Like Peyton Sanford's still there. Josh Dix can really shoot it. So, again, it's going to be another issue of can you guard the 3-point line? Are you able to shut Wisconsin down? Can you do the same to Iowa? Now, I do think they'll have an advantage inside. Owen Freeman, their big man, got hurt a month ago. So there's no resistance in the paint whatsoever. So there should be layups and dunks galore. But I was going to try to keep pace, and I was going to try to shoot a bunch of threes to see if you can make this game in the 90s or high 80s. And if it is, that could be a problem. But senior day, I expect them to play well. Oh, they'll play some zone. I don't know how. I don't think it'll be a very effective zone, but they've got enough length where if you are lackadaisical with your passes and stuff like that, then those can get picked off.
So basically, if the game hits the 90s, advantage Iowa. The game closer to the 70s, advantage MSU.
Yep.
Okay. All right, Harold. Good stuff. Like, hey, let's reconvene later this week and after these two games, Wednesday night, Thursday night, we'll know what we're looking at for the battle going into the Breslin Center on Sunday. So let's reconvene and we'll break that game down specifically on the next podcast. I don't want to get too far ahead, but this is a game. If Michigan wins, State loses, now it's winner take all. If Michigan wins and State wins, Michigan can still get a piece of the title if they win, right? Yep. But if Michigan loses and State wins, State gets a piece of the title no matter what. Or did they clinch it outright?
They clinch it outright in that situation. I think as long as if Michigan loses on Wednesday, State gets a share no matter what. If Michigan State wins on Thursday, they get a share no matter what. So yeah, their magic number for a share is 1 and outright is 2. Some combo of Michigan State win, Michigan loss.
All right. You got any stats for me?
Yeah, so I think the Michigan State second half thing, we kind of talked about the last 5 minutes, but even if you just look at the entire 20 minutes, like they're outscoring teams by 116 points in the second half in Big Ten play. No other team is even above 60.
The entire Big Ten, 116 for 18 games.
Yeah, outscoring them by 116 points. No other team is plus 60. Like the gap is that big. And again, the strength in numbers, the depth, the wearing teams down, I think all of that is in play. And if you look at all the other teams that were plus 100 in the second half of Big Ten play, you're talking 2012, 2016, 2018, 2019, 2020, all won the Big Ten or the Big Ten tournament. So this is kind of falling right in line with it.
Say those years again.
2012, where they won the regular season. 2016, where they won the Big Ten tournament. 2018, they won it outright. 2019, they split it with Purdue. 2020, they split it with multiple teams.
I'm trying to think how many Final Four teams was that you named?
19 made it.
19.
We'll never know about 20, but 2012 was a 1 seed. 16 was Middle Tennessee.
Okay.
And then 2018 was Syracuse.
Yeah, 12 was...
That was Draymond. They lost to Louisville in the Sweet 16, I believe.
Yeah, that's the 7-footer banking in threes, and he's just like, I ain't never hit a shot like this before, Coach.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay.
Right.
All right. Cool, brother. Well, let's hook back up later on this week. We'll see what happens Wednesday night, Thursday night, and we'll break down the game that could be for the Big Ten championship at the Breslin Center Sunday at noon. For Harold Shelton from the BTN, I'm Rico Beard. Thanks for watching. Keep liking and subscribing the 5 Star Zone.